for joining us for this breaking news here on our KGW Plus TV app. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has just arrived in Portland. The announcement came on social media this morning, and she is just landed at PDX.
Yeah, we understand from our Kyla Boshi, who's there at the airport, that Noem is meeting right now with Governor Tina Kotek there at the airport in the terminal somewhere. Kyle standing by there, expects to talk with the governor after that. But again, Kristi Noem has landed in Portland.
Yeah, and of course, Noem is expected to visit the ICE facility today. That is the reason for her visit here into Portland. We don't have specific details right now about what exactly is being planned in the day ahead, but this does come after growing national attention over the last couple of weeks as the Portland Immigration and Customs Enforcement Facility in South Portland has come under the national spotlight, with the question being, does local law enforcement and the federal officials who are around the ICE building have the situation under control? Of course, we've heard from the Trump administration just this week saying that Portland is a war-ravaged city and things are out of control.
Right, as they try and get the Trump administration tries to get the National Guard to be able to respond to Portland from Oregon and now from other states. Of course, that's all on hold until we hear from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
You can see her just stepping off of the plane there as she arrived here. We were wondering if she would fly commercial or not, but it looks like she did not. Arriving here on Portland at Portland International Airport. We want to get out right now to the ICE facility in Southwest Portland where we have Thomas Schultz. You have been there all morning throughout the day as we heard this news breaking this morning. How are things looking out there right now?
Yeah, well, Stephanie and Tim, there's a lot of people just waiting around, waiting to see what happens. But with protesters, and around 10:30, a large police presence here from Portland Police arrived as well. You can see the road right behind us. That's the ICE facility on the left there. The road is completely blocked off in all directions from Portland Police. That happened around 10:30 this morning when about half a dozen Portland police cars pushed everybody past this yellow tape that they set up, both media and protesters as well. They also had loudspeakers out this morning saying if people did not leave, they could be charged for trespassing. There was no problem with anybody getting anybody to leave. Everybody left pretty peacefully and quickly as well. We've seen federal agents moving around this area this morning for about an hour and a half now, taking down some signage along one of the fence lines where some protesters had put up some signage. They took those down ahead of this visit. But right now, it's just a lot of waiting to see what comes next. A lot of protesters have been on loudspeakers this morning as well, chanting messages of protest against ICE, protest against Kristi Noem's visit as well. So it seems like, look, as you guys mentioned, seems like Kristi Noem will be here at the ICE facility soon. We don't know exactly when that'll happen. We also don't know how long she'll stay here, but that's something that quite a heavy presence, probably I would say 50 people at least all around this building are just waiting to see what happens. There's protesters, there's media on all sides of this ICE facility here in South Portland, just trying to stick around and see what happens, see if they can glean any answers. They're just waiting really for Kristi Noem to arrive and see what transpires from there.
Yeah, Thomas, I was just going to say, obviously the word is out and everyone knows that she's coming. Do you get any sense from people besides just their anticipation, kind of what they're expecting or how they're feeling about it?
Yeah, well, I think the common theme here, it's a lot of protesters. We haven't really seen counter protesters, or if they are here, they are not being very vocal, at least in the vicinity that we're at here by the ICE facility. Some anger, some frustration, definitely some protesters here who don't think this is a visit that's at all warranted or should happen. Look, a common theme we've heard from state leaders, city leaders, and protesters here throughout this back and forth with the Trump administration is that they don't think that this requires a federal presence here at the Portland ICE facility. We were here all morning long. It was pretty peaceful and has been the case all morning long. Just behind us, if you're starting to hear some screaming, that's some protesters arguing with counter-protesters. That's gone back and forth a little bit throughout the morning. There's been some arguing and shouting, but it tends to die down and hasn't really led to anything more than that. Some protesters have even pulled others aside and said, hey, we don't want to escalate this. We don't want it to become anything more than it needs to be. But look, you can hear that shouting, that siren is also a protester's loudspeaker. So look, there's definitely a contentious nature out here between those protesters and counter-protesters. Portland police obviously have a large presence here, and they've been monitoring situations, making sure nothing escalates as well. And even though there has been arguing, as you would expect, and has been the case over the past week or so, once more counter-protesters arrived here outside the ICE facility, it has not often escalated to violence. Now, sometimes it has, but for the most part, the broad majority of time, it's been very peaceful, guys.
I know yesterday or a few days ago, I saw there was a pastries, pajamas protest. So there's quite a different. It was kind of to be lighthearted and maybe just counter the rising tensions that are happening down there. I wonder today, are you seeing a similar kind of variation of different diverse groups and people and even ages that are there still during the day today?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is, guys. Look, you can hear there's the protesters continuing to argue with counter-protesters, but that seems to be dying down. That's kind of been the case, is it sporadically pops up for 30 seconds a minute, then it dies down. But yeah, Stephanie, to your point, we have seen a lot of that. You can't probably see him from here, but there's a guy across the street, across the way, that's dressed in what appears to be a chicken costume. And that's something that we've seen here before. This isn't the first time that he showed up in that costume. There's also been a lot of joking and really heckling of law enforcement from protesters, both Portland police, but predominantly aimed at federal agents before they closed off the street here outside the ICE facility, and something that we've seen over the past couple of weeks out here as well. It's interesting, I mean, to your point, Stephanie, as well, earlier this morning, before this street was closed, we saw the protesters that were kind of milling around. If you can see that camp area right there, that's their camp area. Whenever a car would stop at a stop sign, if they fully stopped, they'd give them kind of a golf clap. If it was a rolling stop, they wouldn't give them anything or any clapping or anything like that. So there is kind of, at times at least, in the mornings here, a joking nature outside the ICE facility. But of course, that does change throughout the day, as we're seeing here a bit more frustration and a bit more contention starting to bubble up just a bit as the morning continues.
I want to ask you as well, like for context for where you are right now, obviously we can see people behind you. It sounds like there are people in front of you, but if you walk, 2 blocks either way, is it quiet? Are there people there? Is that just a normal neighborhood? Like, give us perspective.
Yeah, I want to give my photographer Chad here time to actually take the camera off the tripod so we can show you a little bit of what we're seeing. I'm going to try to keep our shot here as well. But look, we showed you guys this a little bit earlier if you were with us in the 7 o'clock hour of sunrise. But if we go over here, I mean, you can see there's nothing going on here, guys. It's just a regular roadway that's open. This guy is actually driving the wrong way down the roadway, so there's some cars doing that this morning as traffic is diverted because of this road closure. But again, I mean, this is the Portland South waterfront area here in South Portland, and it looks like a typical day. This is right a block away from the ICE facility, and if you pan the camera to the left here, we'll do that right now, you can see again, here's the police tape that's closing off this area that Portland police closed off in preparation for Kristi Noem's visit. That's something they did around 10:30 this morning. Until then, I mean, this was an area where people were just walking around. We showed you a little bit down the street. We went down the block earlier this morning. It looks like a regular road. It looks like a regular street. There's coffee shops that are open, businesses that are open. People throughout these protests have been going back and forth to work in the morning, making their morning commutes. And what's interesting is, guys, there's a train line right by the ICE facility where a lot of people just walk across as part of their typical morning commute. We saw people doing that this morning too. People dressed in scrubs, presumably working for OHSU, and there was no problems. So while there is the perception of what's going on here, and you can see, look, there's police tape and it looks like a big scene, right now this is the biggest we've seen it just because of this visit upcoming from Kristi Noem, but it has been relatively quiet, at least during the morning hours here. I know overnight last night we saw more protesters than usual. Our nightside crews saw about 150 protesters and counter-protesters out here. That's a larger number than we've generally seen during weeknights. So that was larger than normal, but still a relatively small presence, and for the most part, been peaceful.
All right, Thomas. Yes, really interesting to see, and thanks for that perspective. I think a lot of Portlanders frustrated that the city is being shown nationally in a much different way, and just seeing that block. So thank you very much for that report, and we'll be back to you soon, Thomas.
Thanks so much for joining us here at noon. You are following breaking news as it develops here in Portland as the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has just arrived in Portland. Now, the announcement came on social media this morning, and she has just landed. We've heard from our Kyla Boshi, who is at Portland International Airport. She has just landed at the airport. You can see her here, arriving, getting off the plane.
That's right, and we're waiting to hear about specifics for what she'll be doing in Portland, but we know this much from Kyla Boshi is that she is actually meeting with Governor Tina Kotek there at the airport. She got off the plane into a vehicle there on the tarmac and then met up with the governor. So their conversation, we expect to hear from Governor Kotek after that, and then we expect that Secretary Noem will be heading towards downtown and the South Water.
Yeah, we don't know exactly the details or the timeline or schedule for her day. This does come after growing national attention, of course, over the last week and a half or so as the Portland Immigration and Customs Enforcement Facility in South Portland has come under the national spotlight. Of course, now 2 orders from a federal judge blocking the National Guard troops here in Portland. We did get confirmation from Portland Police and the city of Portland about Kristi Noem's arrival today. They said in a joint statement, quote, "In the interest of public safety, Portland Police will provide the same routine support they would for any visiting dignitary. This protects our community by making sure our roads and public spaces stay safe. Consistent with Portland's sanctuary city status, our local police will not support any federal immigration enforcement activities."
And we also heard from Senator Ron Wyden this morning. He made a statement this morning regarding Kristi Noem's visit, saying, quote, "Kristi Noem is cosplaying as a public official." That's what Wyden said. "In reality, she's been sent by Trump to incite violence. The best response to her play acting as a cop, ignore her and keep supporting the members of our community."
We want to get back out now to South Portland at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Building, where Thomas Schultz is joining us. Thomas, you've been there all morning. Of course, recently we saw that area behind you blocked off for the Secretary's visit. How are things feeling now? Are you seeing people's sentiments or energy change since they've heard about the Secretary's visit?
Sonic weapon that you may have heard about on the news.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think really in the past hour and a half since Portland Police blocked off this street of the past at 10:30 when they first did, that's when things started to amplify a little bit, just get a little bit tenser as people are waiting to see what's going to happen, when she's going to arrive. And when she arrives, what does that mean? Are federal agents going to come out of the ICE facility? Where is she going to arrive from? How long is she going to be here? You can see right behind us, the road toward the ICE facility here in South Portland is completely blocked off. Again, that happened around 10:30 this morning. So we're on an hour and a half now waiting for Kristi Noem to arrive here to the area. But again, there's some contention from protesters and counter-protesters. We've seen that bubble up a little bit throughout the morning. Generally, it leads to a small argument, shouting match, and then dies down within a minute. We haven't seen any violence or anything like that. But look, we've been out here since 4:30 this morning. It's been very peaceful. This is maybe the most amplified we've seen, and it's still maybe several dozen protesters, a couple of counter-protesters at most, and a pretty peaceful scene. We haven't seen, again, any violence or anything like that. At most, just a little bit of contention between those protesters and counter-protesters.
Hey, Thomas, you know, it's obviously the word is out and the road is closed. Beyond that, do you get the sense that people are just anticipating this in any particular way with the Secretary's visit coming there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for many people here, those protesters who have been here really for weeks, some of them at this point, who some have been camping out, is just a frustration that this is happening to begin with, because they think, look, they agree with city leaders and state leaders here in Oregon who have said the use of federal troops and the deployment of the National Guard is just not necessary here in Portland or outside the ICE facility. We've been out here for a couple of weeks down here in the mornings, and of course we've had crews throughout the day as well. What I've seen personally is just a handful of protesters. Of course, that does get up and rise throughout the day, and at night we see the most. Last night we saw 150 or so our crews did, and that's more than generally we see during the weeknights. But again, they have remained relatively peaceful. There's been a handful of arrests made by Portland police. FBI has also made some arrests, but a lot of those have not led to charges. So again, just a sense of frustration and maybe disappointment from those protesters that this is being elevated by the national government, the Trump administration, to more than they think it is.
Thomas, I know for those viewers who are watching us on our streaming channel KGW+, you gave us a look around you, but now, of course, those who are joining us at the top of the noon, would you mind again giving us a look around you, kind of at the blocks surrounding that area, just to give us perspective on how things are looking right now?
Yeah, Stephanie, I think that's really important, and we want to do that right now. And actually, I want to take you a little bit further up the street than we did last time, just to give you a fuller view. So we're going to try to go a little bit quicker here. But look, I mean, one more time, just to give you a little bit of frame of reference here, let's pan to the left here. You can see the police lines, you can see the yellow tape. There's people milling around, waiting really to see what happens. But if we just walk down the street here, I mean, it just looks like a normal day here in South Portland. It's really pretty day outside. It's in the 70s. There's people on bikes just walking around. We've seen people in scrubs. Of course, there's an OHSU campus down here where a lot of these people are working at. We've just seen people going to work, walking past the ICE facility as they're going about their typical day. I'm going to pick up the pace here because I know you guys have other things to get to. But look, this is just a normal neighborhood at this point, less than a block away from the ICE facility, guys. And this is something we showed you in the morning. It was the same thing. You go 400 feet away, if you look in the other direction from where there's yellow tape and where the police are, it looks just like a typical day here in South Portland. The coffee shops are open, businesses are open, everybody is peaceful. There's no traffic on the street, there's no crime in the area to speak of. It just, look, right down here, you see media crews and that's it. The rest of it is just a normal, typical day here in South Portland. So I think it's interesting to give a perspective to show, even if you go 200 feet away from where this ICE facility is located, if you just look the other way for that matter, it just looks like a typical day here near the South Waterfront.
Boy, it sure does, Thomas, and that's a great perspective. We really appreciate you going the extra block there to show it to us.
Really helpful. Well, I want to talk now. Of course, we mentioned that Kyle Eboshi was at the airport as Kristi Noem was interviewing in a private room with Governor Kotek. We were able to grab her for an interview. Let's listen to what she had to say.
Oh, you don't think so?
We will have this spot, so we'll see what happens down there.
What do you mean?
We'll see tomorrow for sure.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope we get are we meeting today or tomorrow?
We have
Okay. Well, my challenge was
No, enjoy your time downtown. Hopefully it's very uneventful.
absolutely. All right.
Enjoy, be safe.
You bet.
Secretary, what do you hope to accomplish by visiting Portland today?
We hope to have peace and secure some partnerships that will keep our officers safe and allow us to enforce federal law.
Do you have any interest in speaking to Portlanders for an objective view of the situation here?
We believe the president has the right to keep every single citizen safe in this country.
Okay, that was video at Portland International Airport. If you couldn't hear in the beginning, you heard her asking, are we going today or tomorrow? I'm not quite sure what she said, but there was a question about today or tomorrow for some meeting or some event.
Right, I believe it may have been it was obviously a federal official and officer there. She greeting them before Kyle could get in and ask a question. Yeah, just kind of setting their schedule, it sounded like.
Yes, and then mentioning that she's here to try to secure some partnerships. So not sure who that will be. Of course, we're seeing Portland Police, we're seeing federal officials at the ICE facility right now trying to maintain safety and peace there. She also said hoping for peace. We hope to have peace.
That was the first thing she said when Kyle asked what she was hoping to see and find here in Portland, and she's hoping for peace. So she's going to go see that ICE facility and see what's happening around it, and hopefully she'll see a little bit more of Portland while she's here as well.
And this is a look at the ICE facility right now in Portland. You can see a lot of vehicles there getting ready for her arrival. It's not a big area. I mean, it's quite crowded around the ICE facility, so there's really only one way in and out. We saw from Thomas there that area was going to be blocked off, so they're certainly preparing for her to be there potentially today or soon.
Absolutely. And as Thomas was showing us, not a whole lot of people down there, relatively speaking. I mean, certainly more at night, certainly more in past protests in past years. So I'm sure the crowd may grow. I think there are people like Ron Wyden and others saying, stay away. let's not make a big deal out of this, and let's not have it escalate into anything that it doesn't need to be.
So we did see Secretary Noem visit Chicago recently. Of course, she's now arrived in Portland, but last Friday she was outside of Chicago, where Secretary Noem was seen on the roof of the ICE facility there with other officials. This is a look there. You can see a large, generally, I guess, not a huge group of them, though, on the roof there. Now, Noem met with employees inside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement processing facility, and outside the crowd grew over several hours, some riled by the newly installed barricades to separate them from law enforcement officers that were stationed outside. Noem also accompanied agents Friday on a raid near a local Walmart store in Illinois. Now, the governor, Pritzker, there saying that, quote, she should not step foot in Illinois without being held accountable, and said the state is not a photo opportunity.
Right, and speaking of photo opportunities, obviously we've all seen Secretary Noem dress the part for when she goes on these raids or is involved with ICE officers. Looked like she was dressed in regular civilian clothes today. You see her there, but we'll see if that changes.
So we learned about her visit here to Portland just hours ago. So this morning, this actually came from a post on social media from a conservative influencer named Benny Johnson. So he posted on Instagram this morning that she would be coming to Portland and he would actually be meeting her at the ICE facility in South Portland. He also was traveling from out of state to be here. I think we have that post from him. Let's listen to it now.
Hey, what's up, guys? This morning we are headed to Portland, Oregon, and we're going to be joined by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who will be there in order to inspect the ICE facility. She's going to be traveling there to see what's going on and to make a strong statement that the Trump administration will not allow domestic terrorists to run our streets. So we are loading up right now. It's going to be a fascinating day. Follow along. Get ready to rock. We are going today to Portland. I'll see you there.
It is an interesting time we live in when the announcement of a Homeland Security Secretary coming to Portland is made on social media by a non-governmental entity, a person named Benny Johnson, who is a right-wing influencer. It's just the world we live in today with social media. I interviewed Chief Bob Day, Portland Police Chief Bob Day, recently, and he said a lot of what they're doing really is managing these different perspectives and these people who are coming to now the ICE facility, which is under national spotlight. It's bringing a lot of attention, which often attracts people to come and, have their voices heard from both sides of the aisle and sometimes extreme sides or wherever they land. So oftentimes that leads to arguments, fighting, as we've seen. There have been arrests for different types of things that have happened there. But Portland Police maintains, Governor Kotek, Portland Mayor, maintains that this is a very isolated, small part of the city, that they have things under control, that things are peaceful. Chief Day also was very clear when he said, when I asked him, are things under control? Do you feel things are, under your control of local law enforcement? He said, I like to be careful when I say we have things totally under control because you never really have a situation fully under control. That's the challenge of the local law enforcement, of officers in public safety. So, but he said we do feel confident that with our resources that we have things safe for the public and we're watching as things develop. That we can manage it. Yep. And, I will say also for the federal officers that are down around the ICE facility, well, they're managing down there, obviously on their turf. And it's, I think it's fair to say in what we've seen since Saturday that they have ramped up their efforts to manage the crowds down there, the people that come, in the way they've cleared the street, in the way they've managed some of their activities in terms of shooting pepper balls and using more tear gas, it seems like, in the last few days, when there hasn't been necessarily an aggression coming in on them. So I think that we're seeing the federal government do what it's doing as well in terms of managing the crowds. Yeah, since June, Portland police reported that they've made 37 arrests. The Portland FBI office said it has made 149 arrests. And of course, that doesn't mean that everyone will be charged. They then go to the DA and they determine whether people will be charged or not. Of course, we saw a conservative influencer, Nick Sorter, just this week, just yesterday. He was facing charges. Those charges were dropped by the Multnomah County DA. But I want to give you a look at how we got here and some perspective. So back in August 26th, at a cabinet meeting, we heard from Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer, Oregon's former congresswoman, who said that she hoped that President Trump would come to Portland
for a, quote, crackdown. We had asked her what that meant. We didn't hear back from her specifically on what she was hoping for, but 1 month after that, after she made those comments, the president posted on social media directing troops to what he called a war-ravaged Portland and authorizing the use of full force.
Yeah, and then about a week ago, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek told President Trump that federal intervention was just not needed here in Portland. Despite that request, though, the president pressed on with his plan to deploy the National Guard.
Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield also filed a lawsuit looking to block Trump's deployment of troops. That was early last week. And of course, just a few days ago on Saturday, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking the deployment. And then we saw the Trump administration moving forward again with a plan to send national troops from California and Texas to Portland. And then in an emergency hearing on Sunday night, that same federal judge issued a new order, a second order, barring National Guard troops from any state from being deployed in Oregon. So she basically broadened that order to ensure that no National Guard troops from any state or D.C. would be coming to Oregon. Now, of course, the administration is appealing that judge's decision, arguing that she second-guessed the president's military judgment.
Right. I was here working Sunday night when that emergency hearing went down, and Judge Karen Immigrant made it pretty clear from the beginning. It was pretty clear that she was not going to put up with, frankly, what felt like what she kind of described, and I'm paraphrasing, but is kind of an end run by the Trump administration to try and bring National Guard in from other locations that weren't part of the original temporary restraining order.
Yeah, I listened in on that hearing. It was really interesting.
Sure.
Of course, it was an emergency hearing, 7 o'clock on a Sunday night, but I remember her saying, is the defendant, speaking of the Department of Justice, just circumventing my order that I made yesterday, certainly sounding frustrated. The attorney for the Oregon Department of Justice saying, it just feels like we're playing whack-a-mole here. I remember that was a quote that he said, because it does seem like, the Trump administration, their goal is to bring troops in, clearly,
right.
And they are trying to maneuver a way to do that.
Right, and again, in the ruling there, no National Guard troops from any state allowed here, temporarily at least, due to that judge's order. All right, we're going to go back to some video that we got in just in the last several minutes. This is of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem arriving in Portland at the airport there and meeting with some officials first before she'll visit briefly with Kyle Boshi, who's standing in the wings here and ready to ask her a question or two as she moves through this terminal. And this looks like one of the smaller terminals off the main terminal at PDX. Secretary Noem, you'll hear from her in just a second here.
You bet.
Secretary, what do you hope to accomplish by visiting Portland today?
We hope to have peace and secure some partnerships that will keep our officers safe and allow us to enforce federal law.
Do you have any interest in speaking to Portlanders for an objective view of the situation here?
We believe the president has the right to keep every single citizen safe in this country.
That was Kristi Noem coming into Portland at the airport there and presumably heading down to the ICE facility sometime this afternoon.
So that voice, of course, asking her that question, that was KGW's Kyle Boshi. He was there at the airport when she landed less than an hour ago now. We are going to hear from him in a little bit. We believe he's on his way to the ICE facility in South Portland, so we will get to him soon. But we want to get to our Thomas Schultz, who is there now at the Southwest waterfront. Thomas, how are things looking there now?
Well, guys, just 10, 15 seconds ago, we just saw a fleet of vehicles go into the ICE facility with sirens on. They looked to be federal officers. They were not Portland police. It's unclear if that was Secretary Noem, but it could have been. It would kind of match with the timeline of when she may first be here. But look, this is some vehicles starting to arrive to the ICE facility, clearly in preparation of this visit. As for people and protesters out here who are just continuing to be in the area and have been all day long, it seems like frustration on their part that this is being escalated to this extent, in that they believe that, look, they don't think that a visit from Secretary Noem is needed here. But once again, we just saw maybe 5-6 vehicles enter into the ICE facility in preparation for the visit. It's unclear when exactly Secretary Noem will arrive. But that is something that is just, we haven't seen anybody actually enter the ICE facility for about an hour and a half, 2 hours now. So that is something that is new to see over the past couple of hours. As Portland police has been out here since around 10:30. This guy's just blocking off this street. There was peaceful protest before, but they said, we're blocking off this street, and anybody who's within this yellow tape could be charged with trespassing. They had no problem getting people to move past the yellow tape.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, Thomas, too, to see, as you described, kind of the transition throughout the day of protesters, how many are there, their activities, how they're kind of responding to officers there, whether local or federal. Kind of go through that a little bit. We know the nighttime is the busiest time.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the nighttime's going to be a little bit different, Tim. But look, I mean, it's been predominantly quiet. You have seen some protesters and counter-protesters starting to argue a bit, but that ramps up and then ramps back down within the span of a minute. There's been some heckling of law enforcement, whether it's federal agents or Portland police, for the most part, before the yellow tape went up when there was protests actually just outside by the ICE facility. It was more directed toward federal agents, of course, as it has been the case since June here. There's been protesters here pushing back against specifically ICE and ICE agents. But look, for the most part, it's been peaceful. This morning, we've been here since 4:30 this morning. It's been peaceful the whole time. We haven't seen any violence or anything like that. Again, a little bit of a smattering of small little arguments between protesters and counter-protesters, which leads to maybe a minute of a shouting match, but then that trickles down. Once again, you do see at nighttime some arrests being made. We saw a couple detainments last night, Portland police arresting one man from Tennessee, actually. But for the most part, as we've reiterated over the past couple of weeks that this has escalated here with the Trump administration trying to bring in the National Guard, it's been peaceful and frankly, a pretty small protest. I mean, for us, when we've been out here throughout the mornings, maybe a couple dozen people is what we're seeing here this morning, before it's really more people have come in throughout the day, and maybe around 50 to 75 people are here now.
Interesting. You mentioned, Thomas, somebody from Tennessee who's there, and I think it just goes to show that the people who are here aren't actually all Portlanders.
Right.
Probably mostly not. I know we had our Evan Watson out in a report earlier this week or last week saying most of the people who were out there were actually with the media, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
it's kind of interesting. And it's important context for viewers and for people who aren't here. Thomas, I also want to ask you, can you give us an idea from where you stand right now? Where is the entry point into the ICE facility? Like, where would she need to be driving into from where you are right now?
Yeah, well, guys, sure. So if we can zoom in, you can see this Portland police vehicle with its car doors open. It's right behind that, tucked away to the left, is the entry point into the ICE facility. That's where we saw a handful of vehicles, SUVs with sirens, zoom into a few minutes ago and just kind of pull in. That's where she needs to enter from. So we're not exactly sure where she's going to enter from. She could enter, there's a couple of entry points, either where we're standing. There's a street kind of midway between the end of the yellow tape. At the end of the yellow tape there, that's McAdams, which is seemingly the most likely area she would enter from. That's where it's the easiest entry point. It just seems the most likely area of where she would come in from. And then once she's into the yellow tape, I mean, she'd be into the ICE facility in a matter of 20 to 30 seconds behind closed doors away from protesters.
Interesting, Thomas. It'll be interesting, too, to see what she does once she's there. And as you said, she may already be there with that motorcade that you saw go in. But will she stay inside the building? Will she end up on the roof to get that looking down view as she did in Chicago and other places? I guess that all remains to be seen, right?
Yeah, all remains to be seen. I mean, look, she could go out on the street. Maybe she has federal agents behind her. We're starting to see Portland police move away from the facility just a little bit here as well. But to your point, Tim, I mean, it's not sure or clear what she's going to do or how long she will be at the ICE facility. Is it going to be a 5-minute visit? Is it going to be an hour or 2 hours? That's just a lot of uncertainty that we don't know right now. But of course, as this situation progresses and she does arrive, if she hasn't already, that's something that we'll get some more insight on throughout the day.
I know you mentioned around 10:30 this morning, so just about 2 hours ago, Portland police was there. They taped off the area where they wanted the secretary to be able to enter the ICE facility. And you said now more recently they were kind of moving people away as well. How have people responded to that who are there? Protesters or just, either members of the media or even just protesters or anyone nearby? Have they been cooperating pretty well? Has it been going okay as far as that goes?
It looks like maybe we lost Thomas's shot right now, and so we'll have to try and get back to him in just a little bit. It is interesting to me that there are just the number of people that are down there. I would have thought possibly that this visit would have drawn more people down there, but it seems like it really hasn't.
He said about 75 people or so,
Right.
and of course, many of those I believe are probably media as well covering this. But we want to get now to our Kyle Aboshi. He was there at Portland International Airport when the secretary landed. He's joining us now in the car as you make your way to the ICE facility. Kyle, what were things like at the airport?
Let me set the stage for you a little bit. Keep in mind, this is not the main terminal where regular passengers come and go. This is a private hangar, typically where corporate passengers and corporate jets go. I was waiting in that terminal for quite some time and saw the secretary come out of a meeting with the governor. Had the opportunity to ask Homeland Security Secretary Noem about her visit, what she hoped to accomplish, and then also if she'd have any interest in speaking with everyday Oregonians about the current situation here in Portland. As for the meeting with the governor, I just spoke with Governor Kotek a few minutes ago. The governor was not informed in advance of the Homeland Security Secretary's visit. She did get word this morning. They did not have that confirmed. Then they set up a meeting. That meeting did occur. That lasted about 15, 20 minutes. It was one-on-one between Governor Tina Kotek and Secretary Kristi Noem. Governor Kotek said the focus of that discussion was primarily surrounding the safety of those surrounding the ICE facility, making sure that everyone is safe. She wants to protect the rights of those protesters that are out there, but also make sure the deployment of tear gas is not something that impacts the nearby neighbors. And she emphasized that point to the secretary as well about the well-being of those who live in this area. If you're familiar with South Portland, you know there are a lot of high-rise apartments and condos and a lot of people who live in that area. So obviously a great deal of concern about their health and safety as well. They went on to discuss primarily what's happening there. I asked about possibly any discussion about the National Guard or potentially even the use of active military. And the governor said that was not a point of discussion. Instead, it was specifically around what's happening at the ICE building now and making sure that it is a safe environment, particularly for peaceful protesters or demonstrators outside that building. In looking forward and what the governor expects, she hopes that the secretary will provide an objective view and report back to the president as well after visiting Portland. The governor did not know about the secretary's plans or schedule going forward. That's one of the reasons the governor said she wanted to meet with Secretary Noem right out of the gate, is so that schedules didn't get mixed up and they didn't miss each other. She really wanted the opportunity to sit down and visit with Secretary Noem as quickly as possible. Again, that meeting lasting about 20 minutes. She did suggest that Secretary Noem would be meeting with local law enforcement and suggested that might include Portland Police Chief Bob Day. As you may recall, Chief Day has been very outspoken about the situation in Portland, suggesting that we do not need the National Guard in Portland.
But it sounded almost like an echo.
Again, after her arrival here on a U.S. Coast Guard plane, Secretary Noem visited with Oregon's governor for about 20 minutes. Then she joined a convoy of vehicles, presumably headed to the ICE facility. We should also note there were a number of influencers there, people who post regularly on social media. Those people were waiting in the terminal for her arrival, then were taken to vehicles to meet with the secretary, presumably to tour the ICE facility with the Homeland Security Secretary. I'll send it back to you folks.
Kyle, I'm interested to know, did you see Benny Johnson there, the gentleman who broke this news on Instagram of the secretary's visit? Was he in the terminal?
Yes, he and at least two other influencers were in the terminal waiting for the secretary. talking about their flight logistics and getting here. And they obviously flew overnight, many of them from the East Coast, to meet with the secretary, and were invited to be with her as part of this tour today. Keep in mind, local media did not have that opportunity. We just happened to be in the terminal, or I happened to be in the terminal, had my phone, and had an opportunity to ask her a few questions.
I want to ask, you mentioned that the governor asked her, several things and was requesting of, use of tear gas to avoid impacting neighbors and neighborhoods and different things about hoping that she'd provide perspective to the president. Did the governor give you any indication of the secretary's response to those questions or requests?
So I asked the governor that specifically. I said, what was the tone of this meeting? She said it was very professional, a one-on-one meeting. She also noted that Secretary Noem is a former governor herself, governor of South Dakota. So she understands where Governor Kotek is coming from. And again, she described it as a professional discussion between a current governor and a former governor who now holds the position of Secretary of Homeland Security.
Kyle, I want to say you just didn't happen to be at the terminal. You put yourself there, and we appreciate you getting that from the secretary and getting all this information for us. You've done a lot of this. Can you kind of characterize this? I mean, a 20-minute meeting seems pretty substantial to me.
Yes, it is. What is interesting is the logistics behind this meeting. So typically when elected officials or dignitaries are scheduled to visit a city, there's a great deal of planning in advance. Not only the logistics of transportation, security, coordinating where everyone will be and when, but also the media is typically advised and put in place and given access oftentimes, at least in a limited time frame. In this case, no one really knew that the Homeland Security Secretary was coming to Portland until news broke this morning, including the governor for that matter. And even the governor's office said they had difficulty confirming that fact, and they went to the airport in anticipation of possibly meeting with the Homeland Security Secretary. So that kind of speaks to the fluidity of the situation and how this meeting came about, simply by essentially being at the right place at the right time, where the governor was able to sit down with the Homeland Security Secretary and have a rather candid conversation. Now, where it goes from here is anyone's guess. And again, unlike typical visits from elected officials or dignitaries, where we have a timeline or an agenda laid out in advance and we know where they'll be and who they'll be meeting with. In this case, even the governor didn't have that information. The only other that she knew that the secretary would be meeting with is local law enforcement, specifically Portland Police Chief Bob Day. When that meeting will occur, where, no one has that information. Obviously, there is some reason to potentially withhold that for security reasons, but if those at the highest level of state government aren't aware, you wonder who is.
You mentioned that the governor said this was a professional interaction, professional conversation. It sounded like they were able to talk for about 20 minutes, a good amount of time. Did she give any indication that she felt hopeful about something positive coming out of this visit?
I'm not sure if hopeful is the right word, but she certainly was not dismissive or pessimistic. I guess neutral would be maybe the best word to use, in that, I think she appreciated the fact that she was able to express herself and raise her concerns as the state's top leader, specifically about the health and well-being of people who live in that area. Again, touching specifically on the use of tear gas by federal agents in trying to protect the building and keep demonstrators away. And then secondarily, protecting the First Amendment rights of individuals who are peacefully demonstrating outside of the ICE facility in South Portland. Those are the primary points that the governor was trying to make from this meeting, as it was explained to me by the governor.
All right, Kyle Aboshi, where's your location now? Kyle, you must be getting close.
We're heading westbound on I-84 down towards the downtown area. But as you folks have been documenting, the area surrounding the ICE facility is fairly secure at this hour. So I'm not sure how close we'll be able to get. But obviously, the interactions we've had so far this morning with both the Homeland Security Secretary and the governor of Oregon have been rather fruitful, not only in getting information, but having an opportunity to see them and see how the situation is playing out in real time.
Kyla Bush, you're reporting for us on the way to the ICE facility. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you again soon. Let's check in again with Thomas, who actually, we're so sorry, we have a technical issue, but we will try to get Thomas here again in a moment.
Sure, maybe a little recap of the meeting that Secretary Noem had with Governor Kotek. Obviously, the whole thing, here she is arriving, Secretary Noem arriving in Portland on a Coast Guard jet and at the corporate hangar that's not the main terminal, onto the tarmac there. And then a meeting with Governor Tina Kotek there. And as Kyle described, a 20-minute meeting, a candid conversation he described, and professional as well. The mayor asking questions about the focus of the visit and emphasizing the governor's desire for safety for those around the ICE facility. As you mentioned, Stephanie, the tear gas issue for neighbors in that area has been something that we've reported on and covered in it, and that's a problem.
It's very close quarters, right, around that area. A lot of people live right there. But of course, to give you perspective, if you're just tuning in, we learned this morning from a conservative influencer who made a social media post that he would be meeting Secretary Kristi Noem in Portland as she was visiting the ICE facility. So she landed here in Portland just about an hour ago. We watched her get off the plane. She met with Governor Tina Kotek, who did not know about her visit, but was able to speak with her, as Tim mentioned, for about 20 minutes. And she seems now to be potentially, as Kyle mentioned, on her way potentially to the ICE facility.
Absolutely, and that's where we're going to join Thomas Schultz now. His camera is back up and running. So we're going to get to Thomas and see what's happening down there now. Thomas.
Yeah, well, guys, we've got some protesters who have a loudspeaker out talking to Portland police. But what's also interesting is that I just looked over at the ICE facility on the roof. It looks like there's federal agents on top of the roof right now. And we know that Kristi Noem, she went to the top of the ICE facility's roof in Chicago. It's not clear she's going to do the same thing here in Portland, but she may be up there right now. It's really hard to tell from our vantage point if she is, but it's clear there are people right now, seemingly federal agents, that are on the roof of the ICE facility. It also seems like right now, just over the past 30 seconds, a minute or so, more protesters are getting a bit more agitated and just loudly protesting against law enforcement. Seems like some people are unable to get out of their garages right now who live here because of the police tape that's blocked off. That's leading to some frustration on the account of the protesters as well. But again, Kristi Noem might be in that building right now. We don't know. She may not be, but we did see some vehicles go through the ICE facility gates maybe about 25 minutes ago at this point. They went in pretty quickly. It only took them about 15-20 seconds to actually cross by the yellow tape and into the ICE facility. Again, we did just see federal agents on the roof of the ICE facility. It's not clear if Noem is with them or not, but that is an area that we've been looking at as a possible place where she may set up and maybe make a social media post or something to that degree. We don't also know if maybe she comes out on the roadway when she does get here, if she is not already here, and make some display of some kind there too. But still a lot of uncertainty. It's not clear if she's here or maybe she is, and a lot of people just kind of waiting to see what happens out here.
And Thomas, just so you know, we've got a shot up of the roof of the ICE facility from our Wells Fargo Skycam. It's pushed in really hard and hard to tell who the individuals are that are on the roof, but there are 2 or 3 people up there. One person just walked away. It did not look like they were in dark clothing, which Secretary Noem was in earlier. So we do have a view of that. It's not real clear, but there are people up on the roof right now, Thomas.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's an area that, we've seen federal agents at before, so it's unclear, maybe they're just looking and monitoring the protests right now. Maybe that's an area that they're setting up for something later today. Again, Tim, as you kind of alluded to, a lot of unclarity right now, but as you mentioned, doesn't seem like Secretary Noem is up on the roof. Those would just be federal agents. But again, I mean, we want to reiterate, and guys, we mentioned this all throughout the newscast, but it's been peaceful out here all morning long. Now, you can hear some yelling, you can hear some shouting. Of course, protesters have been agitated toward police, agitated towards counter-protesters all morning long as this protest has continued throughout the day and really the weeks and even the months, but picking up, of course, over the past couple of weeks. Now, when there is some shouting matches with counter-protesters that last 30 seconds, a minute, and then it kind of dies down. So once again, I mean, maybe 50, 75 people out here total. It looks like even on the other side of this yellow tape on the other side of the street. That's McAdams there on the other side of the ice facility. Looks like the crowd's died down there a bit. That's the same on our side right now. Frankly, more media members, or about the same amount of media members as just kind of onlookers or protesters at this point. Maybe 30 people over on our side total. So this is not a large protest by any means. It's not an antagonistic protest for the most part. Now, of course, there is some contention and yelling towards Portland police, and if federal agents were out here, I would imagine toward them as well. But again, peaceful is the main takeaway so far this morning, guys.
Thomas, thank you so much. We appreciate your reporting there from the ICE facility. We want to see if we can get now, of course, a lot of people are not in agreement with sending the troops or, sending in the National Guard here into Portland. We heard from Ron Wyden this morning, responding now to the Secretary Kristi Noem's visit here into Portland. Let's see if we can get his statement. But he said, quote, Kristi Noem is cosplaying as a public official. He went on to say, in reality, she's been sent by Trump to incite violence. Don't tar and feather her, as Speaker Johnson suggested for Governor Newsom. The best response to her play acting as cop, ignore her and keep supporting the members of our community.
That's right. And, this is all just happening so rapidly today. This was something we just learned about this morning via social media, that Secretary Noem was heading this way. And now she's in Portland. She is heading to the ICE facility, or she is already there. She has spoken with our governor. She may be speaking with our police chief here in Portland. So a lot going on this busy Tuesday.
Yeah, we will, of course, continue to follow this for you. We have our Kyle Boshi on the way to the ICE facility, Thomas Schultz following along. All of our team here following along as the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem arrives here in Portland. Our coverage of the ICE protests will continue all day on KGW Plus. As soon as we have any updates, we will be back as well at 4 o'clock here on KGW with the very latest from South Portland and Kristi Noem's visit to the Rose City. Thanks so much for watching.